All right, comic people, and the place to be. It's another time for Avenger Mania here on Avengers Forever podcast, and we have another spectacular guest. He's not the flower guy, nor is he the comedian, but you probably know him from many runs of his Hawkeye, and I'm sure we're going to talk about his upcoming series, The Other Half. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jim McCann.
Hey, Jim McCann. He's not the baseball player either.
Or the dead Irish folk singer.
Oh, yeah.
Because then it would be abhorrent.
I was doing some research and I was like, how many Jim McCanns out there? What the heck?
Yes.
My dad, but he doesn't show up on Google.
Oh,
exactly. But you do.
Oh, it's weird.
Yes. But yeah, I always sat and you probably know, there's a little motto on Avengers that once an Avenger, always an Avenger. And, this may be 10 years after the whole Hawkeye series ended, but, I, hey, we had Steve Englehart here on one show, and I was 11 when he was my first comic book, so it took me 30 years to get him on my show. And so, 11 years is nothing for you, Jim.
You're welcome,
well, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is that a Ms. Pac-Man machine behind you?
It is the Pac-Man and Galaga machine.
Oh my God.
That's awesome.
Yes.
It's class of 81. It's what it says. So it's got a bunch of like random stuff from 81, but it also has Dig Dug. So have fun playing that.
Are you graduating class of 81?
No, it was just no. I was 6 to 7 then.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, I'm the elder statesman. Sorry.
That's all right. But no, it was just the name of it.
Well, when I was a kid, we used to go on a field trip to the arcade when I was in sixth grade. We used to bring our quarters. So yeah, and I remember Ms. Pac-Man being one of the games. So, but anyway, thank you for coming on and joining us, Jim. I appreciate you being here. You'll find that this is the Avengers Forever podcast. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about Hawkeye, but we will branch off because I know that Avengers or Hawkeye was just a small part of your career. So I do want to touch on other spots as well, and I'm sure Mike and Ken have their own questions, and I'm sure they're going to jump in. But why don't can you start by telling us a little bit more about yourself and where you started? What gave you the writer's bug?
Honestly, it started in 4th grade, when, we had to do this recital, like read out, read a poem or something. And everybody was doing Shel Silverstein or, like mostly Shel Silverstein stuff. And I decided to write my own, and I got like more than a participation award for that one. But no, that was the first story that I ever wrote, was in 4th grade. And then I just continued writing. I got to college. Well, no, in high school, I co-founded the creative writing club that's still active and going now, which is nice. Wow. Many, many, many years later. I went to college and I majored in communications, media, but I minored in English and theater. And I wrote plays for the theater and won best writer one year. So it was another like, oh, awesome. I guess I'm doing something right. And then I was living in Nashville, Tennessee at the time, which is where I'm originally from. And I was at the Grand Ole Opry. This was after I'd graduated college, and I was at the Grand Ole Opry backstage and ran into Cassie DePaiva, Blair from One Life to Live. And it was her night. Like, she was like one of the opening acts, her first night performing at the Grand Ole Opry. And I told her how much I loved the show and that I was a budding writer myself. And she said, give me your information and I will get you in touch with somebody. And sure enough, like a week later, someone from the ABC Daytime Writer Development Program got in touch with me, asked me to write a sample, then asked me up to New York for an interview. And then for the next 2.5 years, I was in the writer development program for ABC Daytime. We focused mostly on the 2 New York shows because that's where their headquarters was. So that's All My Children and One Life to Live.
I was the All
And
My
I
Children kid.
ghosted.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yay. I ghosted those shows, meaning like I would get the breakdown and I would write like my own scripts for it. But also, like, I had to keep up with it, which was not a problem with me if I'm, learning from it. Um,
Yeah.
and then I was able to write a couple of One Life to Live episodes. Um, they would give the writer development people like an episode here, an episode there. And it was at one point they decided, because we wrote like 2 months out, I think, and the head writers were like, well, we're taking Max and Luna's storyline in a different direction. So this whole thing that I'd written about this like witchy snake charmer kind of person with a mystery to her, and this monologue that I had given her and thought for like days on, got cut.
Oh
But
no.
thus is the life of television. Um, and I got a chance to introduce Fish, who is played by Chris Evans's brother, um, or was. Show's gone. And I did. Oh, goodness. I'm blanking now. Christian and um, redhead. What was her name again? David John McBain. Natalie. Christian and Natalie's proposal on the rooftop. Got to do that episode, and then just you know followed the show and was part of it, and it trained me so much on serialized storytelling, which became invaluable. Serialized storytelling, which became invaluable to when I went on to comics, because what you have to do in soaps and in serialized storytelling in general is respect the past, their voices. There's already continuity, there's already a tone set for how they speak, but then move character forward and advance storylines without undoing too much of the past. In most cases, there's always retcons, but it and it's the same way in comics. So that was my thing, and I had moved to New York by that point. And I said, I wanted to work on All My Children or One Life to Live full time as a writer, or write for Marvel Comics or work for Marvel Comics. Uh, and Marvel had always been working for Marvel, and working at Lucasfilm were my 2 childhood dreams. And so I moved to New York. 2 months after I moved, like after I had almost spent all the profits I made from the sale of my house in Nashville, and I needed to get a job, a Monster.com alert popped up for Marvel for a traffic coordinator. And I applied on a Sunday. And over that week, I was interviewed, offered the position, and started the position all at once,
Wow.
because it was San Diego Comic-Con, and they wanted to get somebody in as quickly as possible. And the girl whose place I was taking, her last day was that Friday. So they wanted me to get like at least 2 days of training with her. So it was probably the fastest way I think anybody's maybe broke in to comics
Wow.
in a sense. So,
Did
and
you know
then went
anybody in
on.
comics before that?
I had not met anybody. I did know just from passing. I knew David Gabriel, who is the director or the executive vice president. I don't know what his title is now of sales. Um, and he had actually said, "Oh, I was going to send you uh, that job opening,"
Wow.
but I'd already applied for it. And I don't even know if he had time to give his recommendation yet before I interviewed. I had 3 interviews in one day. because they wanted to
Wow.
just fill it quickly. So, and it was great. It was traffic coordinator, which means that I made sure all of the deadlines were being met and setting schedules with my manager, and David Bogart, and then trafficking scripts from place to place because people did what's called readouts, and where the editor would take a script and they would give it to another editor to read, and they would give notes. And the notes were always on the cover. And we're all Hawkeye fans here, but I'm also a massive Colossus fan. And this was when Joss Whedon had just started Astonishing X-Men. So my first week, it may have been my first day, but no, it was my first week. Ralph Macchio had done a readout for um, Avengers Disassembled, and I saw on the front his note was Hawkeye deserves better than this. And so
Oh,
that piqued my interest. And so I read that script and I was like, because it's the not this
oh,
way
yeah,
death of
yeah.
Hawkeye. And I felt gutted. And then I had printed something off and I went to the printer, and Mike Martz in the X office had printed off something as well. It was right on top of my script that I had printed off. And it was the page where Colossus runs through Kitty Pryde,
Oh, wow.
where
Oh,
we knew that he was back. So one of my favorite characters died in one day and was resurrected. Another was resurrected on the same day. So it helped cushion the blow.
That's awesome.
so you
So
instantly in that monologue, you shotgunned almost all my questions.
I'm sorry. I have a lot
No, no,
more.
it's fine because I love it when I feel like I'm right there with all the questions I wanted to ask. So, um, I want to
Welcome.
kind of yeah. So, I did kind of want to back up a little bit because you were so
Oh, of course. No worries.
you brought up the whole serialization in soaps
Mhm.
and how important that was for you to learn how to like tell that issue after issue storytelling in
Yep.
Avengers, and to just and that in continuity, which I think is kind of like a forgotten art in the comics these days. Um, but so did you have to do a lot of boning up on Hawkeye before you took over on that, or were you always a
No.
fan of comics and Steve
I was,
Englehardt's run
I
on the
mean,
West Coast? Or
I started in 1983 collecting comics. So I got the Hawkeye mini that introduced Mockingbird,
the
the West Coast
Grunwald kid?
Avengers. That started right when I started collecting As of New Mutants. So those two books always felt like that was my Avengers book and my X-Men book because
Uh-huh.
I was starting from the ground up. And this was very important to me. And I had always loved Hawkeye and Mockingbird. I did not like the way they had like fallen out, um, and also the way that she had died. Um, but I loved the Fortune Mini, but they basically meet, fall in love, get married, and are on a honeymoon within like 3 issues.
Yeah.
So, and then I also had gone back and read a lot of Avengers issues that Hawkeye was in. And I always say they say that there's the big three in the Avengers of Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor. But I always say there's a big four. And I
Mhm.
think that it's a quadrant. And I feel like Hawkeye is that fourth core member that holds it up because these these other three represent like gods and technological geniuses and a super soldier that's patriotic and a big time leader. But then Hawkeye is just a guy. He's a
Mhm.
guy who has to practice every single day to be able to stand literally shoulder to shoulder with the god and be just as good as. So he has to work for every single thing that he gets. And that is what I identified with. That's what I love about him. And that's why I was so excited to be able to write the character. So that's my Hawkeye love.
So my Hawkeye love comes from a similar spot, but for me it was I think there's not very many characters in Marvel that grow and have character development over the course of time where you can look back and say he started as a villain and then he was this brash upstart Avenger and then he grows over time into a leader and then
Mhm.
he leads West Coast Avengers and then he comes back and then he wants to give back so he becomes a leader of the Thunderbolts and then you know and then for you for your writing with Hawkeye and Mockingbird, or started in the reunion, right? Then the reunion and
Yes.
Hawkeye and Mockingbird, and then Widowmaker, and then the Hawkeye limited series, which I just love the way that continues, even though it's different titles. It's just like it's the same story. It continuous.
I had come in. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt.
No, please continue.
And I had come in with a 1 year because I was like, God, I'm gonna be lucky if I get to write this guy for 1 year.
Mm,
Um, uh, and so I had come in with in my mind, I'd come in with a 1 year plan. Um, and then everybody thinks long term because you're like, oh my God, what if I'm writing this guy forever? But I also
yeah.
had the plan of if it's just this, it's just this. So the reunion, I wanted to get across Bobby's PTSD for when
Mhm.
she had been abducted by the Skrulls and Clint's identity as Ronin and realizing they both have to kind of come out of what's happening and kind of more into who they are now. And so in the reunion is when basically kind of the last time you really saw Hawkeye as Ronin. And then Bobby, when we see her, she's in her whole new costume and has um, a very guarded personality and attitude. Um, and she's very take charge, and I made her and Clint almost her a little bit more a leader that I always thought that she could be. So but yes, you mentioned that they seemed like one continuous story, and that's because it was. It was we did we did New Avengers of the Reunion, knowing it was going to be in many. Hawkeye Mockingbird was originally greenlit as an ongoing,
Right.
but um, but to be able to continue on to get numbers up, um, I was able to do Widowmaker and then Blind Spot, and I was able to achieve one of my end goals, in that, uh, in the future, Clint is always Clint's always blind. Like, nobody does that, and so that's why I gave him this Pym particle tumor, um, that could be activated again at any time. I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna lay the foundation, groundwork for why he gets blind in the future because it always jumps ahead."
Yeah.
So I thought that would be fun. I thought that Bobby as a more hardened character would be fun and interesting while still maintaining her wit. Um, I wanted to give them a real extended love story, so that them coming back together, back and forth. But I always knew that spread and Hawkeye and Mockingbird where they're kissing on the top of the Museum of Natural History was always like a seminal moment, this thing that I knew was going to happen. And in fact, David Lopez, when we got the green light for Hawkeye and Mockingbird, flew out to New York, and I lived there, and I lived right behind the Museum of Natural History. So he came out. We just ran around New York taking pictures inside the Museum of Natural History, and he was able to just get so much reference. It was so fun. But the first one, New Adventures of the Reunion, he actually lived in that area of Spain that it's set in.
Oh,
So
wow.
he was able to use his back door as reference. And then I'm like, okay, we're coming over here. So yeah, David and I worked very well collaboratively. I would say. I think that he's somebody that I mean, I always think that I always like to think that the artists and I work very hand in hand. And I think that's because I started working with David first, and then Janet Leigh with Return to the Dapper Men. I had known her for 25 years before, and she'd never done sequential comics or anything like that. She was a painter. So I just kind of introduced her to that. And so I just really I love working with artists and giving them giving them creative freedom. Um, but I also love it when we can like really get close and collaborate because it's so spread out a lot of times. But it kind of feels like that Stan Lee, Jack Kirby in an office and jumping up and acting everything out, and Jack and Sal Buscema like jotting down doing quick sketches and their breakdowns and stuff. So not that I'm saying I'm Stan Lee, it just I really liked that energy that I always read about and kind of wanted to do that.
Yeah.
Well, that's
So
you get excited by the creative
oh,
process. So,
100%. I am so happy when I'm writing. Be it um corporate comics, meaning like Marvel, DC, or Star Trek at IDW, um, and then writing my own stuff. Um, I love it. I love when I can hear the I love when I can hear the voices in my head. Um,
Ha!
not in a not in a I need to go talk to my therapist way, but more like when I hear them, the banter kind of comes to me, and I have a notebook, and even if I'm not on that issue yet, but I know something's going to happen, um, I'll start to fall asleep, and then I'll think of this little repartee or a line or something like that, and I whip my notebook out and I write it down real fast. um, and so I have just a notebook on each project. I have a different notebook that's full of ideas and dialogues and how I can break issues down, and just it lives in there.
so it's a case of the characters writing themselves in your head. You know them so well. Engelhardt told us one time too, was there was like uh, the characters, like he went into the comic not really knowing how it was going to end, but the characters dictated the direction of the story, which I thought was cool.
Oh
So,
yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, I had an end goal, but at the same time, there was enough freedom within there to um like Widowmaker uh just evolved naturally, and I'd had the idea of where Ronan originally came from and who would be Ronan. And so I thought, well, this is a place where we can tell this story.
hmm.
And it was fun to play with Black Widow too.
Did you was she in your original draft for that continuing story that you had in your head, or did you wrote her in there to make her the
No, it
main character?
was in Widowmaker, it was Dwayne Swazinski and I um writing and just going back and forth with emails, and our editor, Bill Roseman, chiming in and saying, okay, no, this sounds great. This sounds great. And I think it made sense that because Black Widow was ending, Hawkeye Mockingbird were ending, but we wanted to keep going with the characters,
Mm.
so we merged them for a mini, and it made sense for those two characters to go together. The one thing that I did plant, and well, two things that I planted and were fortunately like kind of picked up on, was there's a moment in Hawkeye Mockingbird where Clint and Spider Woman share this moment at the fridge, and that had been able to go on. They were going to have a one night stand, and in retaliation, Mockingbird was going to have a one night stand with Dominic Fortune, who was living with her
Woo!
at the time.
Woo!
So, and there was going to be a relationship on the side with Jessica Drew, um, and then Hawkeye Mockingbird having to get over that trust issue and eventually like come back together. My end goal was to make like my end goal, like if I had been able to write the character for more than a year, was to have a Reed Richards, Sue Storm style wedding with the two of them and all of the like Avengers and heroes joining in their union, because we never got to see anything like that with them before. And I always think that it's really fun when there's coming from soaps. I think it's really fun when there's a wedding and hijinks before it. So
Interesting.
yeah, but that was but Brian Bendis picked up a little bit on that
Yep.
with Jessica, and he was really kind to, like, when I was writing Hawkeye, there were things that I couldn't do. Like I couldn't keep Clint blind in that, because that wasn't in the plans, the overall greater plans for Avengers happening. But I was able to do, like, the Jessica Drew flirting kind of part. And then also in Blind Spot, having Clint inherit a bunch of money and not know what to do with it. Um, Matt Fraction got in touch with me because he was, going to be doing his run, and asked, what's the end of it? I'm like, well, he's got all this money. He has no idea what to do with it. He was like, all right, thanks. I think I can do something with this.
Huh.
So that was, it was like, it was very satisfying, because it wasn't like, well, I guess I was writing all of this in a bubble the whole time.
Mm.
But I don't think I was, because, I mean, I wasn't, I don't think, because there are a lot of people that it resonated with, which I'm very thankful for and humbled by. And, I got the chance to create a bunch of characters, and while they may not have been used again, maybe they will be in the future, that they exist. And it was something that I got to say, all right, this is something that Jim McCann created. And you go onto like an Avengers fan site or an Avengers wiki, and it'll say created by Jim McCann. I'm always like, hey, that's cute. Not cute, that's cool.
You get to add some toys to the toy box. That's fun.
The speaking of toys, Jesse Falcon, who was the liaison
Toy
with
Biz, right?
all of the toys, yes. Um, he well, David Lopez sent them the designs for Mockingbird's new costume, and we had put Clint back in the purple and blue for Hawkeye Mockingbird, but he had, like armor on one arm, and he looked different than other things. So rather than putting out Marvel Legends figures of like the classic iterations at the time, there was a Hawkeye from my Hawkeye run and a Mockingbird that's stayed in that costume, which I'm super happy about. Um, there's a Marvel Legends figure of that, so I have them uh, out of or still in the box, because I'd play all day with them if I took them out.
I have both Mockingbirds figures somewhere, and I have my
I have both.
your
I have
Hawkeye.
the
Yeah,
Avengers. I
your
have the
Hawkeye set.
Avengers. I have the West Coast Avengers box set, which has their old one, and then I also had to get the Sky Cycle Hawkeye.
Oh yeah,
So
those gotta have the Sky Cycle if you have Hawkeye.
I know.
It's gotta. A couple of questions
I didn't
for
mean to
me
interrupt you.
from.
I'm sorry.
No, 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 no. No, you're the guest. You're the one that talks. I usually kind of jump in. So when you talked about Mockingbird's PTSD, you
Mhm.
won an award for that, right? Prism Award.
I did. I won a Prism Award for best depiction of PTSD in a comic book. Um, and yeah, that was very oh, gosh, cut out this long pause. It was very um gratifying, but at the same time kind of like humbling that people really recognize that, because I did a lot of research about PTSD, and I really put a lot of PTSD in there for her, because who wouldn't have that if they
Mm.
if they were off world for all that time. And she was the get from Secret Invasion. We really wanted somebody at the end to be revealed as having been alive all this time. And so, we went back and forth about who it would be. Um, there was even a moment where we went all the way back to Hank Pym being subbed out and a Skrull being the one that slapped Jan. But
Couldn't go back
that
that
would have
far.
undone
Yeah.
so many stories. But I found that place between, I think it's issue 91 and issue 92 of West Coast Avengers, where they're fighting Ultron, um, and uh, and Alchema, that I thought, all right, well, she goes in, she's fighting, and then in the next issue they find her dead. And I thought, okay, that would be kind of like the perfect place to have a Skrull have taken over her and her
Ah.
abducted in the early stages of it. And so myself and Mike Pasciullo, who was our head of marketing at the time, we both said at the same time, Mockingbird, bring back Mockingbird. And they were like, okay, that's interesting. And I said, why? And I piped up because they're the Mr. and Mrs. Smith of the Marvel Universe. And we were at a creative retreat, like I said, when that happened. And Brian Bendis said, that's a great idea and you should write it. So I owe the start of my career greatly in part to Brian Michael Bendis.
Oh.
So
See,
yes, thank you,
now
Yeah,
Brian.
I was curious how much involvement in that whole Dark Reign, heroic age stuff with Bendis that all the other writers were involved in, and it's kind of cool to hear that you were right there and he was open to ideas and working with you guys.
Everybody is there. I mean, that's one of the things that I really love. I have not yet worked for DC, but I've heard it's the same thing. And then when I did Star Trek Year 5 for IDW, it was run like a writer's room, where Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing were kind of the showrunners, where they would do the overall arc of Year 5, which is canon as far as the Roddenberry estate goes. It is the end of the 5-year mission for the original series. So they were doing the bringing the Enterprise back to Earth, and then myself, Jody Hauser, and Brandon Easton were also within the writers' room, and we each got like a two-parter that would be kind of like a bottle episode, that still moved the story forward, but had its own beginning, middle, and end in 2 issues, which I think is an amazing. Well, if you can tell a story in 8 pages, that was kind of how you start in on a lot of places is anthologies. You go back on a lot of these creators and you see that they started in anthologies, because if you can tell a beginning, middle, and end in 8 pages, then they know that you can tell a story. So, and I did that actually. That was my very first thing, was Marvel Western. Um, and and I was on cough medicine when I walked into Mark Panicha's office, and I'm a huge classic film fan. And I was like, you know what? Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn never got a chance to do a Western. What if they, what if we did a story where it's based on those two and it was a Western? And he was like, okay. And I was like, get this. And this shows you how much my knowledge, or lack thereof, of sports is. I was like, she's named the Philadelphia Philly. And I never knew that that was actually a sports team. So yeah,
I bet you learned pretty quick though.
I did once I got over my cold, I bet. But yeah, I was able to write this story that just took place on a train, um, a gambling story, and it was 8 pages, and I, you know, broke it down, introduced them, set up the characters, set up the story, had the conflict, and then had the resolution, all within 8 pages. So that's a really, I would say to anybody who's listening that wants to write comics, I would suggest that you try doing that. Either with established characters, although you can't ever really use that, or just telling your own story within 8 pages. So it's a good exercise.
Yeah, I hear that it's much more difficult to write for 8 pages than 20. So,
Yeah, it is, or over 400 pages. I found out that was my run on with Hawkeye in the Epic collection. It was over 400 pages, and when I got my comp, I was like, I did this much? Holy cow! And I was completely blown away that they had collected all my stuff in one Epic collection. So I'm very thankful to Marvel for that.
No, that's great. The other thing, so I just want to switch gears into a little bit. Let's talk about the Return of the Dapper Men, and you had already
Oh
mentioned
yeah.
Janet Leigh. Um,
Mhm.
so and you won an Eisner, and that was her first comic.
Mhm. Yeah, it was our first creator-owned comic together. It was the first time I had stepped outside as far as writing. But Janet and I lived within a mile of each other, so that, I had moved, and into a house in her neighborhood, so that and we kept it close to a mile between each other so that
Huh.
we could do the television show Trading Spaces, which was popular back then. And we never got around to applying for it, but we did see each other a lot, all the time. I knew her we were coworkers for a while, and before that, I had been introduced to her through mutual friends. So by that time, I had known her, like I said, for about 20 years. And I saw these three pieces, and she was an artist, is an artist, but um, she was more of a traditional artist, and she would always do hand painted Christmas cards and birthday cards, things like that. But I saw it evolve, and I thought, this lady's doing amazing work. And then one day when I was over at her house, went into her studio, and there was painting of a little steampunk kid, a robot girl flying in space, and then this door-sized picture of these men in striped suits raining down on a Parisian rooftop. And I couldn't get them out of my mind, and I was like, they go together. They somehow go together. And and, it was never part of they were never in the same collection, or she didn't do them in cohesion with each other, but for me, it fit. And so I wrote down what would eventually become the monologue or the opening narration to Return of the Dapper Men. I wrote an email, and it was in the voice that the narrator uses in Return of the Dapper Men, and then just ended it with "Want to do a comic book," um, and sent it to her. And then she called up and she was like, "What? I don't know how to do this, but this is beautiful and I love it and I want to be a part of it." So I had a lot of fun working with her, and we worked out sequential storytelling in comics. Um, and she'd always read graphic novels and comics, so
Mm.
she knew the medium very well. But then she brought this completely different aesthetic and look to it, because she does it on, she'll go and get remnant 2x4s at Home Depot or Lowe's, cut it to a certain size, draw and color on like traditional paper, and then cut out layers and decoupage them on top of each other. And sometimes she'd cut out, I'm looking at a piece right now where she'd cut out um, entirely and left the wood showing, because it was a bird's eye view of somebody, of 41, the main Dapper Man, in a kitchen. So she was like, oh, that's just the kitchen floor. I mean, her mind just works so beautifully and strangely and quirky and like just artistically. Like when you see somebody and they're an artist, capital A. I think that of Janet.
So
I was really happy to work with her.
winning an Eisner on
I'm
your
sorry, go
first
ahead.
attempt, did you kind of get the idea that this was easy?
No, it was the opposite. Janet and I thought, oh, this is just gonna be a calling card book. You know, I was like, I pitched it on the floor of San Diego, and this is when I was still running the panels and for Marvel, and talking a lot and it's very loud at San Diego. But I was there, and Stephen Christie was there, who was at Archaea at the time and is now with Boom. But I pitched it on the floor of San Diego very hoarsely. And I think I even had, like, Janet had done a concept sketch that I had, and I was like, "Look, we got this idea." And he greenlit it right there, which was amazing. But Janet and I, like I said, we always thought this was just gonna be a calling card that said, we can do our own things and show people what it is that we can bring to the industry. And then we were nominated for 6 Eisners, and she was nominated for the Russ Manning Award.
Oh, wow.
And we had a list of books that were nominated, and we were like, okay, I think this person is absolutely gonna win over us. We never had ourselves first on things, and sure enough, we kind of Susan Lucci'd most of the Eisners. um like, they would call it out and it would be like that, and so we would go to the bar each time we lost, or each time another person won. I shouldn't say that we lost.
Oh, uh-oh.
'Cause
Were
that
you
seems like,
5
but
drinks
every time
deep?
somebody else won, 5 drinks deep,
Ooh.
um, 5 drinks deep, uh, uh, oh crap, 5 drinks deep, they announced the, original, the Eisner for the original graphic novel, and they said, "It's a tie." And, Jan and I were like, "What? What?" But never did we think it was us. Um, and then, Dave Gibbons and Jonathan Ross were the presenters for that, and they then announced our names in the book, but we were too busy like, "This is crazy. Hasn't this been a great night?" And, our husbands were on either side of us, and they both nudged us at the same time and went, "They said your name!" And so we grabbed each other's hand and went running up the aisle, and Jonathan Ross said from off to the side, he's like, slow down, you won't lose it if you get here if you get here in a normal amount of time." And I honestly don't even remember what I said at the I mean, maybe it was alcohol, maybe it was just excitement. It was excitement. It wasn't alcohol.
Of course,
They
yeah,
they were very light pours, and it was wine, so, um, and, but no, it was pure joy, excitement, shock, honor, everything, just every emotion just came rushing in. And then there's a lot of parties after that night, and there's a party every night at San Diego, but, there was a Marvel party, and then there was something else, and Janet and I were walking around with the Eisners, and I don't know if you've ever seen one in person, but the globe spins
yeah.
on it. And so I was spinning it and spinning it and spinning it, and my husband at the time said, "You're gonna break it." I'm like, "No, no." And then I spun it, and we were outside, and it flew off, hit the ground, the globe part did, and dented it. And I found out that I could get it replaced, but when I found that out, I looked at it and I was like, "No, it kinda looks like the Death Star now." And I'm a massive Star Wars fan, and so I was like, I'll keep it." And also it reminds me of that night. So
That's
that's
fantastic.
me.
Um,
Nice.
It's got a story behind it, so you got to keep it.
yeah.
I know, right?
Let's, I'm your soap writing is fascinating to me because I've never talked to a soap writer, and I spent my entire childhood slash the first 10 years of my working life working nights, so watching daytime
Oh,
television
yeah.
when I woke up. So,
Mhm.
um, so tell me, I am fascinated about the whole. You basically cut your teeth writing for like
Yeah.
like a team setting, like right, like
Oh, yeah. Like, you don't get, like, here, today, you're writing Bo and Nora's storyline for the week. You
uh,
get, "Here's Tuesday." And so you have to know everybody's storyline, where everybody is, where everybody's going, and you get this 20-page outline that breaks down each scene.
Wow.
And then the scriptwriter, which is what I was, you breathe life into it. You give it the backstory of the history and the hints of what's to come. And in the moment, like heat of the
Right.
moment arguments or love or wherever they are. And you write 80 to 90 pages per week. A soap script, that's a lot of people don't realize like how really talented soap actors are. They have to do everything on 1 to 2 takes at the most. They have to learn a script that's 80 pages long, and they may have 30 of those pages. It's the closest to live theater that I think anything other than Saturday Night Live has on television. So it was really cool to know that, and also really daunting because I was like, oh my god, I'm writing 80 pages a week. So every day I was like, all right, and I would write it kind of by storyline, um, or I would jot down where it was going to go and then just move on to the next scene and write it. I tried different ways, and that's what that program was for, to just try and see what your process was and how you're developing literally throughout this. And so, yeah, that was a really integral time for me and to learn the medium a lot. So, it's you're writing something weekly, and it's similar to comics where you're writing an episode monthly.
Did
So
it make it easier for you to recognize certain characters? Where like I would imagine like eventually these characters that you're writing on the soaps take on the voices of the actors and actresses, but you have to kind of
and you
understand their motivations and know them before you can
oh
write
yeah.
them, right? It's not like
Oh,
you're putting your words in
absolutely.
their mouth. So, uh,
No. I I remember one specific instance where in the show, in the episode that I got to write that aired, Vicky has this monologue. And then I went up to New York, and into the and I got a tour of what was called the castle, because that was the studio. It looked like a castle, the studio that One Life to Live filmed in. And I ran into Erica Slezak, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I think you just recorded or taped an episode that I wrote about a week or two ago." She said, "Really? What was it?" And I told her what happened in the scene. She goes, "Oh, that was a beautiful monologue." And then she drops it on me,
oh
just
my God.
word for word. I mean, she is such a pro, and I was just floored by it. So yeah, she's a treasure to a lot. And then, like, I saw her on The Resident, playing a completely different character. And then she came over to General Hospital recently for a 3-month stint as somebody that she never had a chance to play in pretty much any of her roles as an actor. And so, I love her so much. I miss One Life to Live and all my children a lot, but I'm hoping that they bring Erica's character back on General Hospital. Sorry for those of you who have no idea what we're talking about
Yep.
watching this.
Hey, I will have to ask this question. I have to ask this question. So,
Yes.
I remember, since you brought up All My Children and, One Life to Live, I remember, Kelly Ripa was doing an interview and, like,
Mhm.
maybe you can speak on this and how the actors, as a writer, come to you. 'Cause Kelly Ripa was like, back this was pre-social media really, and Kelly
Yeah.
Ripa was like, "Yo, like soap opera fans, like they're livid." Like like she was walking through an airport once, and a fan was like, she was like 80. She was like, "You whore! Like, how could you do that?" And she was like, "I'm just an actor," But like, since it's on TV like every single day, Kelly was like, they think that's who you are, and like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And so
Yeah.
since you wrote it, did any actors like, they tell you about that? Like, getting kicked back?
I didn't You don't really get a chance to interact with the actors
Okay.
because it's kind of like soaps where the breakdown writers who do the outlines, they're with the head writer in whatever city and wherever the studio is that show is filming. And then the script writers, it goes out to us like in different parts of the country. So, aside from like a trip or two to there, I'd get to meet an actor, um, and that was always exciting and nice. They're so kind. They're so like down to earth. But then, just like I guess in comics until you really break in, he knows what you look like. So they don't know I'm a writer. I can just walk. Fortunately, I could walk right next to Kelly Ripa, and people, even though if I wrote something that she did, as to quote you, as a whore, um, uh, she would get the heat, and not me.
Yeah, so like you wrote soaps from what years did you write soaps? Just
Oh
to
my
be clear.
gosh, I was admitted into the writer development program, I think in 2000, I want to say,
Okay.
and I left the program in uh 20 in 2004, maybe 2001 to 2004, but I know it was around 3 years. And 2004 is when I started at
Yeah.
Marvel, so I
So
know that was my out.
like Mike, I don't know if you watch soap operas. So like during this time,
Oh, I
yeah, there was a character named Todd Manning, and like during that time, the actor changed. And so for anyone that doesn't watch soap operas, this was almost like when Bucky took over for Captain America or John Walker. It was just, oh my goodness. But they eventually
Oh
brought him back.
yeah,
But that was
yeah.
crazy.
No, I've made no secret of this, and if somebody takes this idea and runs with it, then I guess it's my own fault for saying it on podcasts and on interviews. Um, but I've always wanted to write a soap opera comic, um, that would have that feel, come out monthly, follow a bunch of different storylines, and then one day the artist draws somebody completely different, and then there's a little editor's note at the bottom that says this actor is now this character is now being portrayed by, and just
Yeah.
just like have fun and mess with it and
Yeah.
play with the tropes.
Yeah, that could be like a Wonder Man book,
Yeah,
Well, and
yeah,
Jerry Duggan's coming out with the new one, but yeah, that could definitely will be Wonder Man. Yeah.
Now
yeah.
that was a blast from the past, Ken. I'm gonna go. So I know Roger Howarth played Todd Manning. Was he the replacement, or was someone replaced him?
Oh no, he originated the role, and then Trevor St. John took over the role, and Roger actually wasn't really going to come back for a while because his character had done some awful things to this woman, had sexually abused a woman in college during his college years. He was just supposed to be a day player, but he had so much charisma that they went through his storyline of I mean, as much as you, and this is why he left, as much as you can redeem somebody who sexually assaulted somebody, um, they went through his storyline, but he thought nobody could ever really love Todd Manning, even though Blair Kramer, um, like they would have things in it, on and off again, and they were a power couple at one time. He never felt comfortable being a romantic lead. Um, there was no, I'm not gonna tell that story. It's a trigger warning. So cut that part out.
Well, we can't. They
Um,
can't all be Luke Spencer, right?
yeah. So he left that character, and I think he left it and was when he came to um General Hospital, he was playing a recast of a role that James Franco had originated. And James Franco was a psycho, um, possible serial killer. And then he was like, okay, he played that story as long as he could, and that same pang of consciousness uh popped in and was like, he had a great relationship with Elizabeth at the time. And everybody's going, "Who is this that's watching right now?" But no, he had a great relationship with another character. But again, that character didn't feel like it could be together, which in comic book terms or comic book examples, a lot of people, like right now, a lot of modern writers don't think that Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne can honestly be back together. And because of their history, and yes, uh, they had said that, due to the Pym particles and all sorts of stuff, that Hank was under great duress and wasn't really himself when he slapped Jan. Um, but because there's a history of domestic violence there, which we recognize today, that wasn't as recognized in, say, the 70s and early 80s, um, they kind of hold that um, to the characters. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
again, soaps and comics interweaving.
yeah. Did you
Yeah.
did you see how Jim like circled the soap opera back to the Avengers? Like he kind of did
Yeah.
our job for us.
Hey, that's it. Hey, if anybody was going to bring up Hank Pym, I'm glad it was you, Jim.
Yeah.
Hank Pym, we all love Hank. Hank is one
Yeah.
of our favorites. So he's just such an interesting character. What was that?
What's your favorite iteration of Hank?
Ooh, what the
Um,
costumed identity?
I love Pockets.
Yeah,
I love Dr. Pym, the Pocket
I
from the Burn days. That's
yep,
my because Englehart
that's
brought him
mine
in.
too.
Yeah.
Red jumpsuit
Red
pocket.
jumpsuit Hank,
Yeah.
yes. Bringing out the
Yeah,
guns and
Well, that
Rover.
Yeah.
after all the trouble that he went through and all the redemption he tried to go through, just kind of saying, "I'm me," and then just going with
mhm,
it like an adventure, like in almost an Indiana Jones, Tom Strong kind of guy.
Mhm.
To me, that was
Uh,
probably the best incarnation.
Yeah.
that characterization for me was like the kind of like he's redeemed himself almost, or not.
yeah,
He's still flawed. He's still a flawed person, but maybe not everybody can forgive him, but he's kind of forgiven himself, but tried to be a better person,
yeah,
as opposed to the Busiek fix, so to speak, where like he wasn't responsible for himself. But
yeah.
I liked Englehart's kind of at end of the day, the pocket Pym, even though Yellow Jacket is my favorite costume. But
Nice.
Yes.
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
I was excited to be able to play with Pym particles with Hawkeye because he was Giant Man or
yeah,
Goliath,
yeah,
Giant Man, for a run there.
yeah.
And so he played with him Pym particles back then, and then to write the Pym particle arrow was super fun in Hawkeye Mockingbird #1, and which they kind of used in Avengers. I want to say Avengers Civil War
The
or Captain America Civil War,
one of the
where
movies. I
Hank,
remember
yeah, where Clint shoots an arrow and it becomes like 4 other arrows. So it was neat to see that.
I remember. Well, I was just reading that book either yesterday or today, and I was like, oh, they used that in the movie. Oh, did you get a credit in the
Yeah, did you get a royalty for that, Jim?
film?
Yeah, no, I didn't. I did not. I didn't. I do not. I did not. Just like in Agents of Shield, um, the cover of issue 1 of Hawkeye Mockingbird, Mockingbird's like going like that on like crouching,
Mhm.
and in Agents of Shield, when Bobby comes in, like she reveals herself as being, an agent of Shield that's infiltrated. Um, she has the bow staff or the bow sticks, and she takes a bunch of people out and then ends her pose in that exact same pose that was
Oh,
on the cover of Hawkeye Mockingbird #1.
yes. Like Bobby.
And
Hey,
it's a pretty iconic pose. I think you can Google
I'll
it and
drop it. Yeah, I'll
compare
drop
the
it on.
two.
Yeah,
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 I know
he's
what you're
going to
talking
drop it
about.
on the podcast.
It just put
Yeah.
a copyright Jim McCann at the bottom.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Um, So maybe we talked a little bit about this, but I do have this as one of my questions. And then so comics, soaps. Can you talk about the importance of world building? You did it in your book too. That they talk about
Yeah.
in the Return of the Dapper Men. They said that world building was a big thing, right? So
Oh,
how important that
it's
is for everything?
it's completely important. I mean, like I said, there's already a world established in the Marvel universe, and now there's the multiverse. So there's many worlds
Right.
established. But I was writing when there was just 616, and uh, so there's a lot to it. And you know, you have to think about and this goes back to Mockingbird being in the Scroll Home world. I got a chance to think about like what would that world dynamic be like? Because she wasn't held captive. She was on the run the whole time. So, even if it was just a couple of panels here and there, I thought about the whole world and how that would affect her. Um, and then, in the case of Hawkeye Mockingbird and building the WCA, World Counterterrorism Agency, I got to introduce new characters into there and how would they fit into the world and into the overall tapestry. Um, Return of the Dapper Men, it was a blank page. I mean, I got Janet and I got to create everything about it, like how the kids have been playing for so long that they don't know it's play anymore. The robots have been working so long, they don't know if it's work or not. Time has stood still for as long as anybody can remember. Then the Dapper Men rain down and time starts again. And then the whole point of their return was to bring back sunrises and sunsets, um, so literal world building, but also what it is to put away your toys at night and start to grow up. And so that's what Dapper Men is at its core. And then in the other half, which is my new book, um, I set it at Christmas time in New York. And so I had firsthand uh, reference from that, and I was able to just build this world of, like the kind of rough around the edges TI world and this Upper East Side socialite world, and how they can get juxtaposed. What happens when they get juxtaposed, and what happens when one has to become part of the other society, and take a look at how social norms are in different classes. That I guess does that answer your question about world building?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question about the other half. Is that designed to
Yes.
be an ongoing, perhaps,
It
or
no, it's a mini series.
6 issues, right?
It's five. Well, there's a zero issue,
Mhm.
which you can find on ignitionpress.com. And it's the prologue. It tells the story of the two main characters, Henry and Ethan, how they meet and fall in love. It's kind of their meet cute. And then issue one, which is out on March 11th, starts it's 1 year later. They've been married, they've been together for a year, and then the mystery kicks in, and how they have to solve it and go and learn how the other half, both the other half of society and their other half, live.
Mm,
That is where that came from. Or that's what that is. So
yeah.
oh,
I think it's been amazing working on that and writing that, and it comes from my love of 30s, 40s, and 50s rom-coms, and uh especially the Thin Man series. It's very inspired by the Thin Man series. Um Nick and Nora Charles. Uh, they're fashioned after Nick and Nora Charles, pretty much, from the Thin Man series. And that like repartee, it's very um, it's very like back and forth dialogue, and not a lot of like boom explosions and I think things like that. But there are like splash pages that are big, like um verbal bomb drops, basically. Hammer, mic drops, I should say.
So do you have
And so, yeah,
all 5, main issues already written? Okay.
I'm working on issue 5 right now. I'm hoping that when this podcast is released, it'll be finished. So
Oh, yeah.
I'm
Okay.
looking to finish it in the next few days. So,
Awesome, awesome.
and Joe's working on it. So,
Do you hope
Mhm.
on sales or, that there'll be, a part 2? Almost like a
Oh,
yeah.
100%. Like the
Okay.
Thin Man series had individuals, individual movies. I'm hoping that I can revisit Henry and Ethan in another mystery or another case or what have you. But if it's a done in one, there's so many amazing done in ones that you know I'd be happy with that. Just getting the chance to work with Joe Eisma, work with Ignition Press, um, to tell this story that I never thought would be a story, a monthly comic, even a miniseries, where there's, queer married leads, and it's a rom-com mystery. Uh, just, I, I'm not saying this to be arrogant. I'm just saying this because it's just been from my, uh, not perspective, but just my glancing over the shelves. I don't think there's another book that's doing that right now. And so to know that they felt confident enough at Ignition to publish this, and let me run with it is amazing, humbling, and gratifying.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's my feeling, and that's my hope as well.
Well, I have to follow that up because, we before we started recording, we mentioned that Twitch, from the World Counterterrorism Agency, is you. Um, are there, since you're up to issue 5, are there is
Mhm.
any specific character in the other half? Is his like travels more you like like can you say that or no?
There, I would say that because it's revealed in the 0 issue
Uh,
right away, um, my husband is is from the UK, from Scotland specifically.
mhm.
And so the character of Ethan, who's the Upper East Side socialite, is very posh and well dressed and
Uh-huh.
all of that. And I am the opposite. I have no fashion sense. I wear like jeans and a t-shirt all the time, graphic t-shirt always. And he wears labels. So he and I are kind of like Henry and Ethan in that way, where we come from different backgrounds, but we really appreciate the other. And I appreciate him picking out outfits for me to wear for special occasions.
Yeah.
So yeah, Henry and Ethan are based on that. And then like as far as like personalized and people that I know,
Mm,
um, the other characters are like a hodgepodge of people that I know. I'll take something from this person, something from that person, and kind of put it together. In the case of like Victoria, who is kind of our third lead in it, um, and and you'll meet a character named Anne, who is this quirky, uh, octogenarian, rich lady. And I told Joe in it, I said, just those women those ladies who are like gray grandparents, great grandparents age, who really don't care anymore what if anybody judges them, and they'll just go all out, and especially with like costume jewelry or like tons of necklaces. And I was like, but she is old money, like Mayflower money. So of course she's going to turn up in a diamond encrusted turban to a Christmas party.
mm, oh.
So that was kind of like
So she's like
an
Blanche from the Golden
inspiration.
Girls on steroids.
Yes, very much.
Hey. I keep it real, man. I keep it
It's
real. I love my
yeah.
sitcoms.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Awesome, awesome.
So yeah, that's them.
Yeah. Okay.
Mike, do you have any questions?
I did, and then you guys kind of chipped right through them super fast. So I just kept keeping my mouth shut. But I know one question I have, Jim, and it's not a specific
Yeah.
question on any project, but um, I guess who would you say are your influences today, and who are you reading today?
Um, my influences are definitely a lot of the writers from the '80s comics from Marvel specifically. Um, and I would show that kind of across the board, honestly, from from like Claremont to uh all the way back to Stan Lee. Like anybody that was doing that, but Stan did right in the '80s, obviously. I was just thinking all the way back there. Um, but specifically '80s comics, I really love how that told modern day. I mean, I had to give credit to, and there's no having to. It is just credit to Brian Bendis, and he uh there is there are shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer
Mm.
and Gilmore Girls. I would say that greatly influenced my writing, especially the patter back and forth and the pop culture references that don't tend to be today. They tend to be like kind of timeless or well in the past. Um, and writers like, I mean, going back to Dashiell Hammett, who wrote The Thin Man and the Maltese Falcon books. Um, and see, and as far as what I'm reading today, I'm reading a lot of independent books right now, especially because I'm in that world. Um, and then was not reading Absolute Batman right now.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and I'm reading Gail Simone's X-Men, um, uh, G.I. Joe, because I'm a huge G.I. Joe nerd. The first comic one of the first two comics that I got was G.I. Joe #1. That was gifted to me when I was in the hospital getting my appendix out. So it was one of my gateway drugs, so to speak. Um, and I love Something's Killing the Children. Uh, there's just everybody. Brian K. Vaughan, I would say, also is an influence to me. I absolutely love everything that he does. So
I haven't found anything
that
that
is.
I haven't liked by him.
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
And I love his creator-owned stuff that he's doing over on the side with like Marcos Martin. I don't know if you've seen that or his own, like it's kind of his imprint. And forgive me if I've completely forgotten the Polish umbrella that he has it under, but it's a really cool thing where you can pay as much as you want to for an issue. And then they have a deal with a publisher to publish the hardcovers as physical media, but it's
Oh.
mostly digital. So Panel Syndicate, that's it. I knew it would come to me.
What kind of stories is he writing over there?
He did a story where everything in the cloud just kind of exploded. And so
Oh,
all the information came down to everybody. Like, what if that happened? And then the fallout from that. Uh, he's doing that. David Lopez had or has a couple of stories over there at Panel Syndicate that because we worked together for so long, I really liked.
oh.
And I can't remember who else is playing in that sandbox at the moment.
Uh,
Forgive me.
let's see. Ed Brubaker is over there.
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, I just pulled it up. You're making me go down the rabbit hole. Yeah, there you go. Brian K.
No, that's
Vaughan, Alvin Mudge. Yeah, so Brian K. Vaughan's got a couple of stories going on. Yeah, David Lopez, Ken Nomura. Okay, okay.
it's a really interesting
Oh, Joe
place to
Kelly,
go to.
Jay Farber. Oh, okay. Darko
There's a lot
Milton.
of good writers for it. So
There we go.
Brian's
Yeah.
always been good at that big picture apocalyptic thing. What would happen if this actually happened? I think Why the Last Man I just pops out to me, and I'm just like, this has happened, but what else happened after that? And then, so to your point.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just to your point.
Yeah.
That sounds like another good series to check out.
Why the Last Man is my current, modern gateway comic to give to somebody
Oh, yes,
to
it's
read,
good.
because
Yeah.
it's 60 issues, a complete run, and there's action, there's drama, there's romance, there's everything in it, and even to a little bit of a point, keeping a secret identity that then can be translated over into reading comics. And also, I think that whereas storytelling is really easy to follow,
Yeah.
because I have a lot of friends that, because I've been away from comics for a little bit, I've made a lot of friends that don't really read comics or know comics, but they've seen the zero issue for the cold open for the other half. And my husband even does this as well. He had never read a comic book before, and I literally had to like show them. They were like, "Wait, which way do I go here?" And that's nothing against the artist or the letterer. It's just the fact that people coming into it are like, "Okay, I read this, this, and this, and then do I go straight down like columns, or am I going across all the way to the page?" And so I like to, and I think a lot of writers do this, most writers, if not all, um, write in a way that, you know, anybody can pick up a book and it's their first comic, and they'll learn and know how to read it. And and it's also one of the only art forms where the right side of the brain and the left side of the brain are acting at the same time. One side is comprehending the art, and the other side is comprehending the words, and they go together, which is one reason why comics are an amazing medium for reluctant readers.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Like,
and so, yeah, that really, that's something that I'm really excited about, and also that comics are one of the 5 art forms that are indigenous to, or not indigenous to, are native to and created by the U.S. So our history and our culture.
so awesome.
Did you
Jazz
say?
is another one. I can't remember the other 3.
Did you say your husband's never read a comic book?
Well,
It's
he's
true.
Scottish, man. Like,
It's true.
you know,
Yeah.
like
No,
comics
he's
in the UK are hard to get. Like, they come in like those weekly
No,
things.
but
Like,
I mean, you write them.
I
So,
do, but
did,
like I said, I hadn't been in comics for a while.
yeah.
okay.
And
All
so
right.
I'd stepped away for a little bit. And then with this and Star Trek Year 5, I had come back, but he he reads everything. He's my proofreader for my scripts. So he reads the script, and then I'll show him the artwork as it comes in, and then the lettering pass. And his first time reading like a lettering pass and even a colored pass where a composite, he was always like, "I've read this already." And I was like, "You haven't read it like this. You've read the panel descriptions and the dialogue, but now it's put together. So can you read it and tell me if you get it and it translated well?" I mean, I've got amazing editors, that's their job.
Right.
Um, Maggie Howell, Nora Ornstein, and Jamie Rich. But it's, the person you're closest to, you want to get their opinion too as well.
Of
And I
course.
think him being not um a comic fan, he's reading this as his first comic, but also coming fresh to the medium.
Hmm.
Also,
Yeah.
he comes from horror movies. He loves horror movies, and like he has this thing that he says about us, that we're like chalk and cheese. 2 things that you would never think to go together that actually somehow fit together. Because I'm a Star Wars nerd, I'm a comic book geek, I'm a soap opera fan, and he's he's a horror fan. Like, he's an encyclopedia of horror movies from the 70s, 80s, and current.
Wow.
Which I was not until we met each other. I had only watched Scream, I think. And now, he introduces me to that. I give him a comic to read, and it's a healthy marriage that way.
Yeah, it's a trade-off. There you go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Open yourself up to new things, new experiences.
Yes.
Well, I think we can wrap it up, guys. Right? I know.
Yeah, an hour and 20
what-
is a good night's slot.
Yeah. So again,
That's how long we've talked to?
yeah.
That's how long we've
it is.
talked? No, does
Me-
not feel like that at all.
Yeah.
It's been great, you guys.
So remember March 11th, the other half. And Jim, are there any you have a website or any other places? Are you going to any Comic Cons recent soon or?
Well, I'm doing a signing. There's a launch party in NoHo here in Los Angeles at Collector's Paradise. Also, you can go to comicsandcards.net, and if you don't know where your local comic shop is or you're far away from one, you can order the book cover price for each one, but it's the signature series
Hmm.
where I sign each copy or each issue. And you can do that, and it's comicsandcards.net, Collections Paradise. I'm doing a signing at Zeus Comics in Dallas, Texas, the weekend or on the 14th. Joe Eisman will be there, which I'm really excited, and Leah Williams will be there as well, signing copies of Voyeur. And I will be at WonderCon at the Prism booth all 3 days. And then after that, I'll probably be at San Diego, I'm sure. And after that, it just depends on, anybody wants me, I'll go.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's that. And then you can find me on Facebook as the other Jim McCann. Uh,
There's a story behind
and
that.
yes. And also on Instagram, I'm at Jim McCann. And you can find a lot of stuff that I post. I'm very active on Instagram, so that is where you can find me most
Awesome.
often.
All right, guys.
Fabulous.
Thank you again.
All right,
So
everybody.
remember, guys,
Thank
if
you.
there's ever a
right.
Hawkeye, like this is one of the writers to remember. Okay, so
Oh, thank you.
yeah,
You're very kind.
yes.
But the
Pick it up.
last great Hawkeye writer before
No, don't
Yeah.
take away Fractions Run and everybody else who's coming after
I
you.
love Fractions Run, but they never fixed him after that. So I feel like you were the last person that wrote him where he actually grew as a character instead of turned into a bumbling idiot. But
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate your opinion, but at the same time, knowing everybody, I have to say that everybody's done him to their own plans and thoughts of the character, and everybody has their favorite Hawkeye, I guess I should say.
this is it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
100%.
But all right, guys.
All right, thanks, y'all.